extremely excited. I was glad that that was over with and done with, and that's when I started experimenting. I started experimenting with drinking and smoking pot, things that you don't do that.
Bless the Lord. That's right.
And things were great until I got about 15 and I started experimenting with other things. I started trying meth and using it a lot. And when I was in high school, I started making really bad decisions. I got kicked out of school and had to go to an alternative school for having pills that weren't mine. And I remember the day that it happened, I went to church that night, and that door felt like it weighed 10,000 pounds. I had my head hung in shame. I didn't want anybody to know what I'd done, and I wanted them to let me know that it was okay and that I wasn't, I was going to be okay. But instead, I was shunned. I was at the wrong place, I think. And from there, I didn't go to church anymore.
Bless the Lord.
I've always had the Lord in me, but I chose to bury Him with all kinds of garbage. From there, I just kept doing the same things I was doing. I'm not even using this.
Put it up closer.
We can hear you with it.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
With it, yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
From there, I started just going downhill. I was on a downhill spiral. I went to jail when I was 17 actually I just turned 18, for possession of controlled substance, and it was pills not really container. And I thank the Lord that that's all it was, because if they would have drug tested me, I would have been in a lot more trouble. I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Chose not to go to school that day, and them whole couple hours I stayed in that holding cell, I was terrified. I wanted my mama so bad.
Yeah.
I was crying for my mama. And
Amen.
I kept promising God, just let me out of here, and I'll do better. I'll do better. And I did for a long time. I graduated high school, graduated with honors, and all my credits, 3.99 GPA. I had a whole lot of scholarships. I could have done anything with my life that I wanted to.
Bless the Lord.
But instead, I decided I wanted to work. I met a guy, and he helped me stay clean for a long time. And I had a job, and I loved working. I loved making money and supporting myself. It was something I never had done. And then I had my first son, and his name's Noah, and he is my life. And I stayed clean for 2.5 years for my son, and it was all about him and how I could raise him up and teach him the right ways to live and everything. And eventually, me and his dad split up, and I started hanging around with the wrong people again. Therefore, I fell, and I fell hard. I started using methamphetamine just about every day. I used it when I worked, and used it when I didn't work. I used it every day, and the only time I wouldn't use it when I decided to go to sleep, and that wasn't much. And eventually, I lost my job, I lost my home, I lost my family's respect, and I never lost God, though. He was always there. Like I said, He was always knocking. I just kept piling stuff up on Him.
That's the Lord.
And through that, I got pregnant with my second son. His name's Gabriel. He's 2. When I had him, I went straight back to the life that I was living. I didn't use or anything when I was pregnant with him, but it didn't stop me from going. I had him, and I was like, okay, now I can go party again. And instead of doing right by both my kids, I chose to leave my oldest son with my mother for about 2.5 years off and on, so I could go and get high and run the streets and chase his dad down, because methamphetamine is very powerful, and it controls your everything in your mind.
Bless the Lord.
Irrational decisions, you don't think about anything. All you think about is more, and the control, and you need more, want more, gotta have more. And so I continued that downward spiral. 2 years later, I got pregnant with my last son, Nathaniel. This is my miracle baby. With Nathaniel, when I got pregnant, I thought, being with his dad, that things would be different this time, because he was there. And it wasn't that way. I seen how worse it was. I continued to use methamphetamine every day when I was pregnant with this last child. It wasn't that I was denying that I was pregnant, because obviously I was. I didn't have this huge belly for nothing. I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be. I didn't care. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care that I was killing myself, and I didn't care that I was killing the life inside of me. I was too ashamed to go to the doctor ever. When I feared that I waited too long to go, or I was too beat up to go. I had several black eyes and bruises, or that I was too high to go, and that they would find it in my system and it would set up red flags. I never went to the doctor to even find out what it was until 3 weeks before I had him. I found out it was another boy. And I didn't even go then until my mom had a dream one night. And it wasn't even about me. It was about everybody in our lives and the bad things that was happening. And whatever it was that she said, it lit a fire in me. And I got up on my own accord without nobody keep telling me to do it. And I finally went to the doctor. And I wasn't completely honest with him because I knew what would happen if I was. So, but I went. And I stayed good for about 2 weeks. And I chose to get high the day before I had him. And I think that I probably knew that all this was going to happen because I noticed that I was spending more time with all my kids, with Gabe and Noah. We was doing things like a family should. And I remember my son's birthday, his 7th birthday. It was a couple weeks before I had the baby. And it was the most wonderful time I think I've had in a long time.
Blessed be. It's all right.
That last day that I got high, I woke up the next morning in full-blown labor. I mean, I was completely dilated to a 10, and I was so scared because I knew what was going to happen. So I kept convincing myself that maybe I could just lay down or go back to sleep or, go take a hot bath or lay on the back massager that it would go away. And when I realized that it wouldn't, by the time my ride got me, I was already, he was fixing to come. When I got to the hospital, I remember being on that bed. I didn't even have time for any pain medicine, any IV, a gown, anything. They went to check me, and I asked that nurse that if I could have him in for pain, and she said, "Ma'am, I think I just picked your baby's nose. You're not getting anything. He's coming right now."
Yeah.
And I was so scared because it was just me. My mom had my other 2 kids, and it was just me in there with these nurses telling me, "We're here to help you, we're here to help you." And I remember yelling at them, and I was really rude to them. I was in a lot of pain. And it wasn't about 5 minutes later that my baby was born. And I didn't have a name for him yet. I didn't know what to name him. I was confused. I was mad because Dad wasn't there. I was mad because I was coming down. I was just mad. And they put him in the little incubator where they weigh him, and they wouldn't let me hold him for about 45 minutes. And they said because his body temperature was so low, and it was because of me being high the day before. And it was in that moment, looking at my child from across the room and not being able to hold him, and looking down at myself and realizing I just had a kid in 5 minutes with nothing. That either means that I'm a real strong person, or that means I'm a real messed up person. And
That's what Jesus.
I looked over and I see my baby looking at me, and that feeling of, seeing him and knowing, hey, he come out of me. It was horrible. Right then I started feeling the remorse because I knew what was supposed to happen. And so, right then in that hospital bed, looking at my son, is when I decided that I'd had enough. I'd had enough of that lifestyle. I had no plan. I had hardly anything for the baby. I had no name for him. My sister had to name him. And she chose to name him Nathaniel, which means a gift from God. And he is a gift from God. When I finally got to hold him, and they told me that, well, your baby tested positive for methamphetamine, SBG, in heart. But at the same time, it was such a joyous thing to hear because I was so tired of living the life that I lived. I was so tired of this never-ending chase of a substance that never got me what I really wanted. That's insanity is what they call it, expecting different results every time.
Yes.
I was just tired. I was tired of depending on my mother for everything. I was tired of blaming my family, my sister, my brother for not being there for me. I blamed everybody, but I never took responsibility for myself. I never held myself accountable for anything. And then when I was staring at my baby is when I asked God to come back into my life.
Bless her, Jesus.
He helped me with everything because I had nothing. I was reduced to nothing. I was living in regret and remorse, and then I just felt him all over me, like he wrapped his arms around me and told me this too shall pass.
Amen.
And it was the next day that VFACs come in. And when that woman come in, I guess she expected me to argue or expected me to be in complete denial about everything or think it was nothing. But when she come in there, I begged her to help me. I told her I need help with every aspect of my life. I have no job. I have no home of my own. My car's broke down. I have a newborn baby. I have nowhere to put him. I have 2 other kids at home who see nothing but this life that I live. My oldest son, I think he was scared of me for the longest time. When I finally started coming back home, he would always peek his head in the door just to make sure I was there and hadn't left him. And then it got towards the end where he'd peek his head in the door just to say hey to me because he knew I was there. And that I started thinking about all these things now. And my 2-year-old, he's a little rambunctious thing. He's so loud, and it's because that's all he ever heard was, the screaming and the noise and the chaos around him. And he was mean because that's all he'd ever seen was, violence. And his dad fighting, and he didn't know what it was to be like to be a normal 2-year-old. And I started really thinking about how I affected my kids, as little as they are. I really set the worst example for them. And it's not, they're my kids, but they're God's kids. And it's my job, my place, to raise them up to be good men. And when I look at my baby now, he is my miracle. It's just by the grace of God that I didn't hurt him. So far, everything, he's completely healthy, and I'm preparing myself for when or if anything should be wrong later on. Instead of going back to feeling guilty or living in shame for it, I know what to do. I know how to stand up and do what's right by him.
Yes.
He is my miracle baby, and I love him, and I live for him. I feel like I owe it to him because I didn't care when he was alive inside of me. And that's the most horrible feeling that anybody could feel. Today I'm alive and well. Before I just existed. I had no emotion, no feeling, no nothing. I just wasted space. Is what I
Blessed Jesus.
But I'm so grateful for God. There's a loving and forgiving God.
Yes.
That when I surrendered my life to him, he made everything better. He's opened so many doors for me that I never knew were even there, Let alone was close enough to open them. Without him, I'd be nothing today. Without having him in my life, my story would have been forgotten.
Yes.
And I wrote this on our board in my class. I got some classmates over there. That God can turn any mess into a message. He can turn any trial into a triumph. He can turn any test into a testimony.
Yes, he can.
Any victim into a victory.
Lord have mercy.
I have 125 days today. That's the most clean time I've ever had.
Amen.
And
Amen.